My initial response to that would be no, because I think as a responsibility industry, we've spent many years talking about the importance of bedding sustainability and responsibility across the whole organisation, getting into the whole leadership team's objectives. So my kind of gut reaction was creating a chief sustainability officer sitting there kind of in the corner might potentially be seen, fine, we've got that person, they're managing it. When I look at, I work for EE, who runs Orange and T-Mobile and new EE brand. When I look at the issues that we're looking at in a responsibility kind of sense, it's key that every chief plays a role in us achieving that vision. So we've assigned each chief some level of responsibility for driving responsibility forward. So one of the reasons I came tonight is because I think it's, in its whole kind of core thing, it's quite an interesting topic, as in I almost came because I was like, I'm not sure I agree with that. I'm interested in kind of hearing the discussion and the debate. Having spent the evening here and talked about it, I think, you know, the group that I was in made parallels with, for example, a CFO or a HR director, in that this is something that everybody in the organisation still has to manage. We all have to manage budgets and manage teams, etc. But you still have a whole team that are ultimately responsible for that and a chief that's leading on that. So I guess ultimately, if we want sustainability to be discussed at a board level, you need that representative for it. So I wouldn't say I'm quite 100% convinced on that, but I think, yes, there is value, whether it's an individual or all individuals with some kind of representation. It needs to be at board level.
Clearly, the person who's responsible for sustainability has to have access to the chief executive, and I would also say the board of directors. And so where that person physically sits and reports is, I think, is a secondary question to what the influence of that person is. A token person sitting on a board who's marginalised, who's brought in at the end of an agenda item, which is a tokenistic piece on the executive committee, I don't think helps. On the other hand, I think it's very hard to be influential when you're 2 or 3 levels down from the board. So the key is the behavioural governance aspect of that equation.
Absolutely. Yes, I believe it should be at the heart. I think it's the future. I think that companies that don't address the issue of sustainability for the future are not going to survive, and they absolutely have to do some horizon scanning, look at the way the resource base is going, look at the increases in demand, look at the increases in urban settlements, and the pressure on, for example, the price of oil, the price of food, and respond. And there's going to be some markets that emerge around that. And so I believe that the sustainability officer needs to have their eye on all those trends going on outside, and needs to bring that in and convince the other members of the board of the importance of modifying or tuning their product to address those future trends. Absolutely.
I suppose it's all about results. Somebody who reports directly to the CEO but is not titularly on the board, who is effective and who can change views, who can create the sense of perspective that's required, and can use, if I can be quite honest about it, utilise the CEO's authority to further their agenda. It's actually the effectiveness that's much more important than the position on the board. It rather depends on the shape and structure of the governance model, but if I were to be asked yes or no, yes they should be, and if they're not, they should make their influence as good as.
I don't think they necessarily need to sit on the board, but they need a direct line to the CEO. So whether they're actually on the board, you know, in every single board meeting, I don't think that is as important as having that link to the CEO, because someone can still report into a CEO without having to sit on the board. I think obviously if they're on the board, they will have more clout, but I think if they can get a direct report to the CEO, they will still be able to, that CEO will still be able to open doors for them and really give them the space to do what they need to do without having to physically be on the board.
I think the person leading sustainability should absolutely be on the board. But there is something about the fact that you have a visionary, someone who's perhaps, maybe they're the maverick, who's looking to do the real big change, and then you're going to need someone to follow through and implement. And I would argue that they're probably different people. And because sustainability is often a very thin resource within a company, you've got to choose, where are you on the sustainability journey? Do you want the visionary and then bring in the implementer? Or have you got enough of an idea of what you should be working on, or you've perhaps got a consultant in or an agency, to then think, right, we're going to implement a little bit and then we'll get someone in to lead us on to the next stage of the journey. So I think that the stage in the journey is probably quite key. But yes, ultimately, got to be on the board.